The soul. Are we the dream of the self, or is the self our dream? We don't know.
To interpret a dream, we have to look at the structure. Each of the dreams we have in our lifetime is unique. Some seem straightforward and others more complex, but each is spontaneous and unpredictable. It's surprising, therefore, to realize that dreams do have a structure, an actual framework around which the dream is organized. And when we start to trace the outline of that structure, then the random flow of images and events starts to make sense.
Excuse me. We're doing a documentary film on dreams.
Oh, really?
Yes. You're interested in dreams?
Yes.
Why?
Why? Because I'm interested in my life, and I believe they reveal my life to me.
Tell us a dream. I fly often.
How do you fly? Do you have a motor, or do you just fly with your arms? Do you have to flap your arms?
Nah, it's mental. Mental. Just think about leaving, and I do.
Do you think dreams are important?
Aye, that they certainly be. I write them down often.
Why?
Aye, because they tell your future or tell how you are feeling. Most definitely.
Can you think of an example of your own dreams which told you something of the future?
Aye, but they tell me how I feel if something is heavy upon me. I cannot move when things are heavy upon me. Or I be smashed by boulders or some type of weird objects that are very heavy upon my head or shoulders.
The things you are thinking and worrying about during the day, they come back in the night, in dreams. And you get lost of your worries in dreams.
You can imagine things and do things in dreams that you can't do in real life.
Do you remember your dream?
I do remember, and sometimes they tell me what is going to happen, or whatever happened during the day gets totally changed at night in the dream state the way I wish it would have happened.
With me, I find dreams that I remember have elements of thoughts from my day thrown together in a different way than they actually happened.
They probably reflect something of reality, of everyday existence, you know. But what, I'm not sure, you know.
Dr. von Franz, how much of dream interpretation is scientific and how much is art?
I think there's something of both in it. There's a lot of, Jung has really laid down a lot of helpful rules which are purely technical or scientific, which you can apply according to rules of thumb. And whenever I don't understand a dream, I go back to them. I say, now, what is the exposition of the dream? What is the setting up? What is the association? And so on. By collecting the association, you can generally get quite far with the technique. But naturally, there's additionally, especially through long practice, is a kind of practitioner's skill which you develop, which you can't impart to a beginner. It's like an old carpenter. He cannot tell a young carpenter. He tells him how to use the tools and how to measure and how to cut the wood, but there's a certain touch of the wood which he can't convey to the beginner. The beginner has to work 20 years with wood, and then he'll have the same kind of touch. And when one has interpreted many dreams and puzzled about many dreams, one gets a certain hang of it, so to speak, professional skill, which has to do with feeling and with a mediumistic feeling, with an empathy also into the other person.
People everywhere are intrigued by their dreams and want to know what they mean.
Well, they give me different feelings, you know, they're emotional, dreams are, but I can't, you know, I don't understand what they do.
Because they're part of you, because I dream them, they're obviously part of me, but they're a part of me I have absolutely no connection with at all.
I think they're fun. Interesting. I mean, yeah. If you, I like analyzing them. Like, not that I know what they mean, but I like analyzing them. It's interesting. I mean, if you, I like analyzing them. Like, not that I know what they mean, but I like analyzing them. Interesting. I mean, if you, I like analyzing them. Like, not that I know what they mean, but I like analyzing them. Like, not that I know what they mean, but I like analyzing them. Like, not that I know what they mean, but I like analyzing them. Like, not that I know what they mean, but I like analyzing them. Like, not that I know what they mean, but I like analyzing them. Like, not that I know what they mean, but I like analyzing them. Like, not that I know what they mean, but I like analyzing them. Like, not that I know what they mean, but I like analyzing them. Like, not that I know what they mean, but I like analyzing them. Like, not that I know what they mean, but I like analyzing them. Like, not that I know what they mean, but I like analyzing them. Like, not that I know what they mean, but I like analyzing them. Like, not that I know what they mean, but I like analyzing them. Like, not that I know what they mean, it's fun to try to find meaning.
In Jungian psychology, we have a technique, and that is we compare it to a drama. We take the exposition, the naming of the problem, the peripetia, that would be the ups and downs of the story, and the Louise, the solution or catastrophe. And if I don't understand the dream, I use that schematic. I say, now what's the introduction?
I had a dream that I was walking down by a small lake, and I saw these three women who wanted to go into the lake, but I felt that I needed to caution them. I felt there was something ominous in the lake.
I'm walking through very deep snow. On my right, there is quite a high fence. And as I'm walking along, I'm thinking, if violence is going to break out, what am I going to do?
I was in a village hall organizing a concert or something.
Once I was up at the clouds, like just all these fluffy clouds. Sat just in the clouds there and had tea with somebody.
On first glance, dreams seem to be bizarre nonsense. Do you have a general rule in approaching a specific dream?
The first sentence of a dream generally gives the situation, and also the first sentences give who I am with. Either I wake up at home, or I am still at my childhood home with my parents there, or I am at the university lecturing, I'm in my professional situation, I am with my friend Bob, I am with my friend so-and-so. And then you just take the first sentence and you ask the dreamer what it is, what was your childhood home like? How did you feel there? Were you happy there? How long did you stay there? And so on. So then and with whom are you? With your friend Bob. How is your friend Bob? Oh, he was a bore, but we did all our childhood mischief together with him, and whatever the people tell you. And then you kind of insert these, what we call associations, into the text. Then it would be, I am in a situation, I am psychologically still in my boyhood situation, and I am with a part of myself which is boring but also mischievous. That would be the translation. Now, then you have naturally to think that applies to the moment of the dream. So in what way is the dreamer, when one leg still in his childhood home, where is he still reacting like he reacted as a boy? The dream is speaking about that corner of his personality. You have to assume. Then you come to the naming of the problem. A car comes up the driveway and two dark men jump out or something like that, some dramatic evolution. So that means now a special story is told. For instance, what I just mentioned would be an invasion, something which is breaking in, burglary. Burglars very often represent something breaking into one's conscious system. So it would mean in a corner where one still has childish reaction, something from the collective unconscious breaks in. So then we have the second sentence of the dream. And so we go through the whole dream, and the last sentence is always what it is driving at, to a solution or a catastrophe. What is the... I generally know this rule of interpretation so well that I kind of follow it half unconsciously. But I always specially attend to the last sentence of the dream, because some dreams peter out and they are not favorable. They mean that the unconscious itself has no solution. But otherwise, if you wake up with a cry or something happens at the end of the dream, that's the solution. That's what gives you the waking shock. That has to be specially realized.
I went back into the water and came face to face with what I thought would be a creature, and it turned out to be an ape-like figure with almost completely wrapped in bandages, almost like a mummy. And I confronted it and looked right at it, and still remember the face, gorilla-like face, really stern. And, I could sense there was an ape under under the bandages.
You can, the best if you want to interpret your dream yourself, you write on one half of the paper the dream, and then to every word in the dream you write down your associations. And that means you are completely, what spontaneously comes to your mind.
And once the associations have been listed on the other side of the page, then how does the person proceed?
Then you try to show if you have a connection. If you are, the first sentence said, I am in my childhood home, that means where I am still childlike. Burglars come in, so something is breaking in. And then sometimes you don't understand why does something break into my psychological system. Now you have to also think of the day before and what happened before, inwardly and outwardly. You might, for instance, have the day before had some disagreeable experience, and those burglars refer to that disagreeable experience you had the day before. There's something broke into your system. Or you might have had a negative, destructive thought right from within. That might also be represented by burglars. Something destructive or negative suddenly breaking into your system. So you have to shortly try to remember what happened yesterday, outwardly and inwardly, main lines. And then you probably can make a meaningful connection. Then you see, aha, it refers to that. It refers to that thought I had yesterday or that experience, and it shows me that I behaved in the right way or in the wrong way. It kind of corrects one's attitude.
We filmed an amusing dream in Hawaii that made the dreamer feel a bit guilty.
Well, I'm a very, very happily married fellow, and my wife's in Arizona right now with our child visiting her folks. And I don't know why, but I started dreaming I was at a high school prom with one of the girls who works here. And there was nothing lustrous about the dream, but I have this little sense of guilt about dreaming I was spending time with another woman somewhere while my wife's away. I suppose that's a natural consequence. In fact, I even shared it with the girl this morning, just to alleviate any guilt I might have.
We've said that every element of a dream represents some aspect of the dreamer's personality, but that's not always true. There are dreams which are obviously about outer events. Many people dream about the death of a close relative, and in fact they do die. When you interpret a dream, how do you know whether it's about an inner reality or the outer reality? For example, a man dreams about his wife stealing his car. Is she actually stealing his car? Or how do you interpret the dream?
There one comes to the most ticklish problem of it all. Because the question, he will be inclined to think, there you see, that's exactly what she's doing. She's always taking away my ways of moving about. She's always interfering. And you are not so sure. It might just as well mean that that it is a so-called projection, namely that his own feminine side is stealing the car, and that he only projects that onto his wife. He thinks his wife does it. He sees it in her, so to speak, while he's really doing it unconsciously to himself. So that's why if one wants to interpret these dreams correctly, one has to know the whole marital situation, one has to know the wife and have an idea of her objective behavior, and then one can evaluate, no, that is a projection, it's really what this man is doing to himself unconsciously, or it refers really to the wife. And sometimes it also does to both. That's the problem, what we call subjective or objective interpretation. Referring to an outer object, the wife is really stealing the car, or referring to the subject itself is stealing its own car with his left hand, so to speak, or his feminine unconscious side is stealing his own car. Generally, it's one can say that about, I would say, I have never made a statistic, but I would think that about 85% of the dream motifs are subjective, and that therefore it is recommendable to mostly interpret dreams subjectively, to always say, what is it in me which does that, instead of taking it as a warning against outer people.
And what happens if the dreamer has no personal associations to the image?
There are so-called archetypal dreams with big mythological meaning, and there generally people have no associations. If you say, what do you think about Jupiter? Jupiter, it's a star. They don't know what to associate. They have no personal things to come to them. In that case, you have to take the association of mankind. What has mankind fantasized about Jupiter? What has mankind fantasized about Saturn? And put that into the text of the dream, so to speak.
A lot of people have a sense that their dreams are really telling them something, and they want to understand it, but they're unable to.
Do you remember any dreams?
Sometimes, yeah. Wake up that you would remember, but then by the time the afternoon comes, I forget them. Yeah.
Could you tell us one?
Flying. Yes. Just flying somewhere, going nowhere, you know. It's just like, keeps going and going, and not reaching anything. And it was really scary, and I came to work and I told the girls, I got a book on dreams to find out what it meant, and couldn't find it.
I know analysts who've interpreted other people's dreams for years, and they can't interpret their own dreams. Why is it that a person can't interpret their own dream?
The dream never tells you what you know already. It always points to something you don't know, to a blind spot. And can you see your own back? You can show your own back to anybody, and the doctor can see what's the matter with your back, but you can't see it. And so your own psychological blind spots are like your back or your arse, you sit on them. And that's why sometimes the dream tells you obvious things and you can't see them. You need another person to tell you. And then you think, oh Lord, naturally, that's it. But it's very difficult to interpret one's own dreams. If one has to, but it is helpful to have another eye on it. Even somebody who doesn't know about dreams, it's good to talk to somebody about it. But while talking and while explaining to the other or giving association, one very often gets it. Jung, for instance, had nobody to interpret his dreams, so he had a man who knew nothing about dreams. He always told him to a large extent his dreams, and that man made off-the-point remarks, and they got Jung onto the track. And he said laughingly, just the off-to-the-point remarks of this man made me feel, no, it isn't that, but I know now what it is.
Because in the country, we're all in a house with a lake in front of it. And the top floor flips over. And all of us who are in bed upstairs get flipped into the front yard, and I get flipped into the yard in front, and my parents got flipped into the water. And I told my stepmother the dream, and she said, "Oh yes, very significant, because people falling into the water, all very sexual and everything." But I didn't tell her was that when she'd fallen in, she and my father were making love at the time, and that I didn't quite make it into the water, and I didn't quite make it into the sea of life or something.
Yeah, I dreamt I was catching a fish, and every time it keeps slipping away. I mean, that means pregnancy, It was my girlfriend.
Many people use dream dictionaries to interpret dreams. What do you think of these books?
I think they are very, very bad, because they get you off the track. Because generally it's a static interpretation. A snake means an illness or means the death of a relative. Breaking teeth means the loss of the parents or whatever. I mean, there are more primitive and more differentiated ways. There are now also modern dictionaries which are a bit more differentiated. But still, it's always a fixed meaning.
Do you remember a dream?
Yes, I remember one dream. I just fell down into a lake. It was terrible. And there were a lot of snakes, so I must say, perhaps for a psychologist it's very bad. But I don't feel like that. I always felt I am very happy, so...
No snakes?
No.
The dream symbolism in our experience is very much more individual. It is always what that symbol means to me and what I have experienced with it, which counts. And therefore, one can sometimes let oneself be inspired by looking at one of those modern dictionaries to see what all possibilities, what the snake can all mean or what the peacock can all mean. But then I have to always return to say, what does it mean to me? And that is always much more specific.
So what value are dreams in your work as an analyst?
I don't work with anything else. In our way of thought, we only operate with dreams because the dreams are what comes out of the dreamer. The great danger of all psychological helping profession is that one interferes with the other person's life, that one has... Think, for instance, of the idea, what is normal? You have an idea of normality and you think the other should become normal. That's interference, that's a power attitude. Perhaps destiny or God or whatever you want to call the greater powers in the world don't want this man to be normal. How do I know that he or she ought to be normal? And on top of it, normal what I think is normal. My bourgeois ideas of normality, forced upon a poor human being who is destined to be very different. So if you think of that, you don't know, when a human being comes to you with a problem, if you are honest, you have to say, I have no idea where the problem comes from. Well, any idea you have about the patient, well, that the patient should become normal, that he or she should become socially adapted, are just prejudices. You have, in fact, if you are honest, you have to say you have no idea why somebody has a psychological problem and what it is there for, and to what you don't. We cannot know a human being's destiny. I have seen, for instance, the other day, dreams of a little girl of 7 years old, which were the dreams of a dying person. Now, actually, she had had a cancer operation. I didn't know it when I saw the dreams, but she's probably not living more than 2 or 3 years anymore. And she had the dreams of a old, wise personality. So you see how you cannot have theories, how a human life ought to be or should be. And therefore, dreams are the only thing which comes out of the patient himself. And if we try to understand dreams with as little prejudices as possible, we kind of try to find out what does the depth, the psychological depth of that patient himself tell him about him. And we, the psychotherapist, is only the translator, the dream translator, so that the analysis amounts to saying your own psychic depth thinks, let's take the man who is too juvenile, thinks of you that you are a bit too juvenile and damaging your health about being too juvenile. That's not my opinion, it's what we have extracted from the man's dream. And that generally hits home, because the patient feels it's not the analyst's opinion. If you interpret the dream properly, generally what we say clicks. It clicks with the analyst and he says yes, and then he is impressed, and that is likely to change, to give him the motivation to change his life. While even if you would say to the same man, oh, you are behaving too young, too much like a young man, it's not good for your health, he might not listen. He's heard that before. But if his own dream laughs at him in the way I just showed, then at least I can only say in that actual situation the man blushed. And that shows it that the remark of the dream hit home. And then there is a better chance that he really changes his behavior. And so we in our school, we just go along with the dreams and tell try to find together with the patient, because we need the patient's association and his contributions to find out together, so to speak, in a common work, what the dream means, and leave it as that, because generally that hits home and changes, slowly alters the personality, and then the patient doesn't feel he has been put into the straitjacket of some conception of normality or adaptation or whatever the idea is of the analyst, but is kind of having found to follow his own inner intimations, to follow what his own psyche tells him. So we are trying to educate people to be able to hear their inner voice and follow it with the help of dreams.
You're 2,000 meters up in the air.
I think.
On a little set of steps.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And you're coming down?
Yeah. No, I don't walk. I'm just on my.
On your knees?
Yeah, yeah.
You're on your knees?
Yeah.
Coming down a little set of steps. 2,000 meters in the air.
Yeah.
And you fall off the end.
Yeah. But when I fall down, I wake up.
And you've had that dream 2 or 3 times?
Yeah. I think 3 times.
3 times?
Yeah.
And the dream doesn't say anything to you?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't believe that it's important for my life what I'm dreaming in the night.
Yeah.
To interpret a dream, we have to look at the structure. Each of the dreams we have in our lifetime is unique. Some seem straightforward and others more complex, but each is spontaneous and unpredictable. It's surprising, therefore, to realize that dreams do have a structure, an actual framework around which the dream is organized. And when we start to trace the outline of that structure, then the random flow of images and events starts to make sense.
Excuse me. We're doing a documentary film on dreams.
Oh, really?
Yes. And you're interested in dreams?
Yes.
Why?
Why? Because I'm interested in my life, and I believe they reveal my life to me.
Tell us a dream. I fly often.
How do you fly? Do you have a motor, or do you just fly with your arms? Do you have to flap your arms?
Nah, it's mental. Mental. Just think about leaving, and I do.
Do you think dreams are important?
Aye, that they certainly be. I write them down often.
Why?
Aye, because they tell your future or tell how you are feeling. Most definitely.
Can you think of an example of your own dreams which told you something of the future?
Aye, but they tell me how I feel if something is heavy upon me. I cannot move when things are heavy upon me. Or I be smashed by boulders or some type of weird objects that are very heavy upon my head or shoulders.
Things you are thinking and worrying about during the day, they come back in the night, in dreams. And you get lost of your worries in dreams.